Welcome to Control Alt Society. Today, we're diving deep into a really simple, but honestly quite profound idea. The third place. It's this term, right? Coined decades back by sociologist Ray Oldenburg. And it describes those, well, essential spaces that aren't your home and they aren't your work.
Exactly. Think of the classics, the corner cafe, maybe the local barbershop, the neighborhood bar, even the public square. Oldenburg argued these places are basically non-negotiable for a healthy community,
Yeah.
for social integration, and just that basic feeling of belonging, right? They're where we kind of learn to be citizens, not just, consumers or employees.
But let's be real for a second. If you actually look around your city, your town today, those physical hubs, they're changing fast, or frankly, disappearing altogether.
Yeah.
So the big question that's really driving this deep dive is pretty urgent. Are our screens, our Discord servers, those endless family WhatsApp threads, the comment sections on Twitch or TikTok, are they now the modern third places?
That's precisely what we need to unpack. We've got to measure these digital gathering spots against Oldenburg's original checklist, essentially. Do they really offer that democratic, accessible, informal social hub that makes society stronger? Or is it more like a convenient imitation, maybe something fragmented?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. What was the magic? What made that original third place, like that neighborhood diner, so vital? So vital that, when it closed, it felt like a real loss for the whole community.
Well, the core criteria, I think, were democracy and informality. Healthy third places were democratic because they were socially neutral ground. You could be a banker, a plumber, a student. It didn't matter. Status sort of dissolved at the door. Everyone was welcome just to sit, talk, gather regularly. No formal requirements. It was very low stakes. Built for just spontaneous, unstructured conversation.
That sounds almost idyllic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the sources we looked at, they really hammer home the pressure these physical places are under now. It feels like a triple threat, almost. You've got the economic pressure, right? Rising rents, local taxes,
Yeah.
pushing out the independent owners. Then there's urban sprawl, which makes these local hubs harder to get to unless you drive everywhere.
And you absolutely have to factor in the massive shift in how we work. I mean, the rise of hybrid and remote work, it fundamentally changes our daily routines. People aren't leaving the house for that structured commute anymore, where they might naturally pass by or stop at or interact near a third place.
Oh, I see this constantly, that classic corner cafe. It used to be where you'd bump into neighbors, catch up quickly.
Yeah.
Now, so often it's basically just a temporary co-working space.
Okay.
Everyone's got noise-canceling headphones on, heads down. Even the park feels different, often silent, maybe just used for solo exercise.
Yeah.
Very structured.
Yeah, the function of the space has been sort of hijacked, hasn't it, by these transactional needs, either productivity or fitness, instead of that spontaneous social connection. So if those physical hubs are receding, well, that social energy, that need for regular low-effort belonging, it has to flow somewhere else.
Right. So if we've established there's this vacuum,
Yeah.
then the next logical step is looking at the screen as maybe the inevitable replacement.
Yeah.
We need to try and see these digital spaces not just as tools, but as actual places where people gather.
And when you look at where people are consistently spending that kind of low-stakes social time, the digital examples are just undeniable. Take the family WhatsApp group, for instance. For so many people, that is their daily ritual. Checking in, sharing little moments, coordinating life. It's become the virtual kitchen table, really.
And then you zoom out into the universe of specific digital communities, which have unbelievable scale. Think about Discord servers. They're building entire, deeply personalized communities around incredibly niche hobbies.
Yeah.
It's like the virtual version of a chess club and a knitting circle and the local pub all rolled into one. But focused on something super specific, like, vintage synth restoration or a particular sci-fi author.
And this is where the dynamic really starts to mimic physical gathering. Look at Twitch or YouTube live streams. When you tune into one of those, you're not just passively watching content. You feel like you're in a crowded, interactive room. It replicates that atmosphere of a busy bar, maybe, or a stand-up comedy club. Strangers, all united by this common interest, reacting together in real time in the chat.
Okay, so on paper then, these digital spaces seem to tick the boxes. They offer regular access, they're informal, they foster conversation. And the barrier to entry, extremely low. You don't have to buy a drink or show up at a certain time.
Correct. On paper, yes. But they also kind of remix the foundational rules Oldenburg laid out. What's really fascinating here is the sheer scale and availability. Think about it. A physical cafe closes, right? Maybe 9 p.m., 10 p.m., a Discord server never closes. It's 24/7. And you're not limited by geography at all. You can belong to 10, 20, 50 digital third places all at once, connecting you globally.
That idea, portability and scale,
Yeah.
that takes us right into the really compelling upsides, doesn't it? If your whole sense of community can literally fit in your pocket, well, that seems like a huge win for inclusivity, especially for people who might be physically isolated.
Absolutely. The advantages screens offer for accessibility are just massive. If you live way out in a rural area, if you have mobility challenges, or maybe you just don't have the disposable income to hang out in a cafe every day, you're no longer excluded from joining a lively community. It really levels the social playing field geographically.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, that niche factor is huge too. Finding communities based on really obscure interests, I don't know, collecting specific Korean stamps or deep diving into the history of some obscure video game console. The digital world allows for a density of specific interests that the physical world just can't sustain that.
And furthermore, the digital space often flattens social hierarchy even more aggressively than the most democratic cafe ever could. Think about a busy comment thread or an open Discord channel. Those markers we rely on in the physical world, expensive suits, certain accents, job titles, they're often muted online. A CEO, a college student, a retiree, they can all end up in the exact same conversation, just united by a shared passion.
Okay, that sounds like pure democracy and accessibility then. If belonging is portable, why are we even talking about downsides? Why isn't this just universally seen as the better replacement?
Because the shift comes with some really profound structural compromises. We have to talk about the distortion that's inherent in these digital third places. And the core conflict, I think, boils down to one word: control.
Control over the conversation, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Control over the conversation, control over the space itself. Think about it. You're sitting in a traditional local pub. The owner might set the general vibe, maybe kick someone out if they're causing trouble, but they aren't listening in on your private jokes. They're certainly not deciding who gets to overhear your conversation based on maximizing their profits for the night. The social interaction is mostly organic and private within that physical space.
Right. But on a digital platform,
Yeah.
that informal, low-stakes chat we think we're having, it's constantly being filtered, shaped even.
Precisely. Digital platforms exert what we can call algorithmic control. They don't just host the conversation, they actively shape it. Which communities get promoted and grow, which ones wither, whose voices get amplified, who gets muted or shadow banned. And crucially, this control isn't driven by the health or well-being of the community itself. It's driven by the platform's need for engagement, which usually just means maximizing ad views and keeping you scrolling for longer.
Wow. That's a fundamentally different goal than, say, a cafe owner who just wants to keep the lights on and make sure the regulars are happy. It kind of turns the social interaction itself into a performance, doesn't it? Or data.
It really does. I mean, consider the difference. Imagine your local bartender suddenly being able to mute half the people at the bar because their opinions, even if harmless, weren't optimizing drink sales for that evening. That sounds absurd, but that is the digital reality. The very foundation of free, unstructured social life is compromised when the thing facilitating it is engineered for surveillance and monetization.
And that ties directly into the privacy issue, right? We think we're just having casual banter in a group chat or a forum. But every single interaction is recorded, analyzed, crunched, monetized.
Oh.
Oldenburg's third place was supposed to be a refuge, a break from work and home life. The digital third place. It often feels like just another data input field.
That permanent record, that constant analysis, it fundamentally changes the nature of what we feel comfortable sharing and how we interact. If you know you're being recorded or that an algorithm is judging your every word for engagement potential, you naturally self-censor. That casual, unguarded atmosphere, which was absolutely essential to the function of the original third place, it gets lost.
And I think maybe the most important structural distortion we need to touch on is fragmentation, which feels like the complete opposite of that original democratic ideal.
It really is. Traditional third places, just by their physical nature, they mixed diverse neighbors together, people who might not otherwise meet, simply because they all lived on the same block or used the same local shop. That forced a kind of serendipity, bumping into someone with different political views or someone from a totally different economic background. It forced you to recognize your shared space, shared humanity.
Yet the geography itself forces a type of civic training almost.
Absolutely. It's civic training. Online, though,
Yeah.
because of that algorithmic control we talked about, and because we actively search out niche interests, we tend to cluster much more strictly into echo chambers,
Ah.
based purely on shared identity or ideology. And that dramatically reduces the chance of bumping into genuinely different viewpoints in a neutral context. We lose that fundamental civic skill of learning how to interact respectfully with people we disagree with in a shared space.
Huh. So while we gains this incredible ability to find, say, 50 other people scattered across the globe who love vintage synthesizers just as much as we do, we might simultaneously lose the ability to have a functional civil conversation with the 50 actual people who live on our street but happen to hold different worldviews.
That's the trade-off, essentially. Unparalleled scale and personalization versus necessary social friction and civic integration. And finally, we really have to consider the mental health side of things. A true third place should recharge you socially. It should be a relief from life's pressures.
But digital hangouts, they can so easily devolve into the exact opposite, can't they?
Yeah.
Endless feeds, the pressure to perform online, the potential for toxic interactions or pile-ons. It can leave you feeling drained, more isolated, even tip over into doom scrolling instead of providing genuine social refreshment.
So yeah, we trade physical proximity for digital proximity, but the potential cost is often authenticity, privacy, and that crucial exposure to difference.
But okay, the story doesn't just end there on a down note.
Right.
Because we're now seeing this really interesting frontier emerge, the hybrid future, which tries to blend the screen and the physical space to kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yes, and this blending is vital, I think, because it acknowledges the social loft that comes with purely digital connection, but it still wants to retain the benefits technology offers, the scale, the accessibility. In these hybrid models, the screen often mediates the social interaction, but it anchors it back into some kind of shared physical or structured experience.
Can you give us a concrete example? How does that actually work in practice?
Sure. Think about location-based augmented reality games. Like Pokemon Go was the big one, right? The digital overlay on your screen that gives you the common goal, the niche interest, finding the Pokemon. But it literally forces you out onto sidewalks, into public parks, walking alongside other real people. It turns physical spaces back into shared social grounds, mediated by the screen.
That's fascinating. So the screen creates the reason to be there, and the physical world provides that accidental side-by-side presence with others.
Exactly. Or look at the attempts to create, say, digital pubs or lounges within immersive VR environments. Okay, yes, it's still a virtual space, but the social dynamics, the feeling of body language, the conversational structure, it feels much more tangible than just text chat. It's trying to replicate the feeling of physical co-presence.
Right. And even much simpler applications, maybe like co-watching apps, where you combine streaming a movie or a show with a real-time audio or video chat with friends. The experience is shared, it's mediated by the screen, but the anchor is that common event. Kind of like everyone gathering in living room to watch the big game together.
These hybrids, they suggest that the future of community isn't necessarily about choosing between analog or digital. It might be more about designing interaction systems that deliberately prioritize the social health, the serendipity of the original third place, while still leveraging the incredible scale and reach of the screen.
Okay, so let's try and summarize our findings from this deep dive. Are screens functionally the new third places? I mean, yes, for millions, probably billions of people across the globe.
Yeah.
That essential function of sharing life, laughing, arguing, just belonging, it is transferred to glass and pixels. The function is there. It's portable. It's scalable.
And it's a big but. The deeper, more lingering question is about the consequence for civil society. Oldenburg firmly believed that those face-to-face encounters, those sometimes awkward, sometimes enlightening moments of mixing with diverse neighbors in physical third places, he thought they were absolutely crucial for democracy to actually function.
So if we replace that essential training ground, that civic gymnasium maybe, with screen time encounters that are algorithmically curated, often designed to keep us siloed in echo chambers, do we gain this incredible inclusivity and scale? Yes, but do we ultimately lose the essential depth, the friction, the shared civic context that makes a community truly robust?
That, I think, is the central dilemma we're grappling with right now. The goal shouldn't just be to build sticky apps that keep our eyeballs glued to glass for longer. The real challenge now for founders, for policymakers, for community builders, it's to design genuinely healthy third places for the 21st century. Whether those spaces are digital, physical, or, more likely, some clever hybrid of the two. Spaces that foster connection without sacrificing authenticity, privacy, or democratic integrity.
So maybe the question for you to think about is, What does your third place look like today? And who, or what, is the algorithm keeping out of it?